Welcome to another Good Dads podcast. I am Jay Foch, and before we get to introductions, you know what's so great about these podcasts is we get to have guests on of all different walks of life, all different areas and seasons of life. And today we're going to be talking about adult children who have moved out of the house, which we're a little further off from that, right?
Yeah, I'm closer to that adult child.
You are the adult child. All right, we're going to start with you. Introduce yourself once again, and then we'll go right down the line.
Absolutely. Scott Lewis. I'm the project manager here at Good Dads, so I mostly work with the Forge and the Plus Us programs here at Good Dads.
Yeah, and we would like to welcome our guest, Dr. Jon Spence, the Chief Academic Officer at Evangel. And since we are talking about that, tell us a little bit about your children and your family.
Well, it's good to be here. This is a great group. My friend Denise invited me to be a part of this. And first of all, I just believe in what is happening with this organization and the power of equipping fathers now. You know, throughout history, nobody had a manual. We just did what we did. But as I'm a father of 4 children, all of them are now officially off of my payroll. But I'm finding out it costs you more.
I was going to say,
really?
Does that really happen? I've been talking to my mom about this, and she's like, you don't stop worring.
Yeah.
You're still here just
and I
in
still
case.
pay more taxes because of being off. But no, I love my kids. I always joke about the fact that we bought a table with 6 chairs. We have spaces for 4 kids, and that's where we found that completed our team.
You don't want to buy another chair.
No, that's all good.
That's the costly part.
Yeah, that's where my granddaughter comes in. So we have my oldest son is 29, followed by my first middle son is 28, and then our third son is 25, and then our daughter is 21. So
wow.
they've been a joy to raise. Our lives were just like what everybody says when you have kids that are active. And we had a rule when they were growing up, especially as they got into junior high and high school. We just said, look, you find what you love to do, what you want to get involved in. And I said, I'll bankroll the accessories, cleats, helmets, voice lessons, you name it. That's what I'm going to do to help you to take away some of the obstacles that would tell you, oh, I can't do this because I don't have X. I never believed that if I bought them Air Jordans, they would be drafted in the NBA. I just wanted them to be able to have just things that would be in their way that would keep them from actually not enjoying what they did. And each of them were in great cohorts of friends. And our theater was in the theater. Our oldest was involved in that, and so we watched a lot of plays, and our others were involved in either it was football, track, and our daughter was a swimmer, and so we learned a lot and put a lot of miles on cars.
So with that, like going back a couple of years when you said that you kind of supported their endeavors, were there ones where they tried and they're like, nah, I'm not going to do this? Or how did that look when they were at a younger age and they kind of, because I know we've kind of talked about this a little, Scott, where you try to, like, you know, our daughter's 7 and then we have a 14-month-old, but we're like, you know, what are you into? Like, we're going to support whatever you want. Yeah. But is it almost kind of like at that age, like, try everything, see what you kind of like, because you can't do everything, right?
Right.
You just can't.
Well, you can't, and you want, and I've watched, you know, friends and parents do different things. Our deal was, to begin with, when they're active and they got a lot of energy, let's find something where they can expend that energy. So what made sense to us was, well, let's get them in soccer because they run around all the time, and it looks like a Charlie Brown cartoon, and they're all traveling around. They don't know what they're doing, but they're running around. And it was important that they had coaches that were hardwired for preschool or that level. You know, it's I didn't need anybody who was looking to buy championship rings. I just needed someone who could, and sometimes I involved myself with it. But when they didn't want to do something anymore, I was like, okay, that's fine. Let's find something else. But when it was fabulous when they found something that they really wanted to give themselves to, and we just traveled along in support. And one the lessons that they taught me was when they got involved in football, because my life for 10 years of my career was involved in athletics. I was a coach, and prior to that, I was an athlete in high school and then for a while in college. And
did you do everything?
No, I didn't. I was just a football and track guy.
Football and track,
and,
okay.
And that was just what I enjoyed, and that's what I could do. But watching my kids and then getting involved, and when they started getting involved, they immediately, when I would start kind of giving them some tips, they're like, okay, Dad, time. We just want you to be dad. Don't need you to be coach. And I was like, duly noted. And I said, but I'm over here. I've got a little knowledge base. I can help you if you need it. But I said, I will not interject until you, ask. But you'll hear me. Yeah, you ask, and I'll always be positive, and I'll look for the things you do well. I never was down on their coaches. In fact, I would make it a point after game, because I know what it's like. Nobody understands what it's like to stand on a sideline and have to make a decision every 25 seconds, and it's got to be perfect.
Right.
And you're relying on 16 to 18-year-olds to pull it off. Okay. The same thing with college. But so I was always trying to be encouraging to my kids' coaches and thank them for their investment in my kids.
Okay, now let's rewind even more.
Okay.
Because we were talking a little bit before about this podcast. You were a coach before you got married. So let's go back before kids and even marriage. You were a coach. Did you bring that into your marriage?
When my wife and I actually when we met, I was coaching junior high here in town over at Pershing. Okay. And I had been a bachelor, and so my life were these kids. So I was coaching football, basketball, and track. And it's funny because this morning I meet every Friday with a group of guys that I coached from like ninth grade on up through in the mid 90s, and we reconnected. They're your age at 47, and they're like, and all of a sudden they're dads, and they're raising junior high kids. And we meet over at Architect, drinking coffee and solving the world problems as well as, other things. And so it's entertaining to see how they operate. But for me as a coach, one of the things I really had to learn, and I really tried to be sensitive about this because I wanted to know every kid by his first name, because that was who they were as an individual and not just by their last name. And I looked for ways to involve as many as possible and get them on the field. And we had alphas, and then we had those who were on the developmental level, but I was grateful for my time there. I wish I appreciated it more, because I was always thinking, well, I got to move up to this next level. But my best years were when I was on the developmental level with these young men, because I realized how much it meant to them to wear the jersey and for them to say, hey, coach, and for me to call them back by name. And
how important was that for a coach? Because I've heard this before. I haven't coached anything. Obviously, I don't know what I would coach. What would I coach? I don't know what I would coach.
The debate team, maybe?
No, I don't know what I would coach. But I've heard this, just having that personal connection with your team, knowing each person, and you have to treat them all as a team. And you got to build that camaraderie. But how important is that? What you're kind of saying is kind of develop who they are, what they need from you.
It's there's just multiple levels of pressure. But it doesn't feel like it at the time, because you're looking at these kids, and if you had for me, I spent my entire secondary school teaching career was in junior high, and my people were 8th graders. I taught some 7th grade, but 8th graders, they were sophomoric in humor. They still thought I had some authority. Some of them pushed back, but I just had a connection with them. But helping them work through challenges and knowing that they had an advocate, because I had some outlaws. You can't have a really good team without having some of them. And I had some kids, in class that had challenges with the authority, and they'd come in my class, and I was like, hey, come here, and I'd say, you have a reputation. I think you know that. And I said, but in here, if you do what I tell you to do, then I'm in your corner, and you need me, because people trust me, and I want you to trust me, but I gotta know you're going to be trustworthy, and they would, and those were great memories for me, and that was, I mean, I've been at this for 38 years now, and those are some of my favorite memories.
This Good Dads podcast is brought to you in part by our generous supporters. This week, we'd like to thank the following: Table Rock Shores, Prime Inc., Mr. and Mrs. Bob and Susan Biney, Springfield Sign, Han DeBuff Government Relations, Midmo Bank, Pinnacle Family Advisors. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Visit our website at gooddads.com to learn how to contribute to the Good Dads mission. So you kind of mentioned, like, when your kids were asking you, only if they ask you for help, you can coach. Was there anything else, like, throughout the years, and we'll kind of get to more of the adult children here in momentarily, well, was there anything that you used prior even to your marriage or prior to having kids? Was there anything about coaching that you used to be a dad other than the actual,
well, it was sport? Like this, when sometimes they would start chirping about their coaches, and I'd say, hold on, now, I think and I'd help them understand some of the things, or at least help them see what the life of a coach is like. But also to understand this, that as a player, I always ended up playing behind somebody who was better and durable, i.e. I had to wait. And I hated that. At the time, I learned a lot from it. So when my kids had, I'm not getting a chance, and I'm like, well, here's what you can control for. And this is what I learned during that time as an athlete that I just transferred to them. Hustle. Know what you're doing. If you have an assignment, know the assignment and do it to the best of your ability. And you find a way where the coach cannot not put you in. And that was kind of how I tried to coach them up on that to be because one of the things that I wanted, and they all were this way, was certainly I wanted them to have success, and they had, and each of them had that, and I'm grateful for that. But more important than that, they were coachable, and that was on me and my wife to be able to instill that in them as part of their character, because that doesn't go away.
And how important is that for life?
Yeah.
I mean, what you're saying, like, my mind is going through everything. My mind actually just where it went, not trying to get off in the weeds, but me and my mom were talking about just how there's been a lot of articles and a lot of studies about workers of the new generation saying that I don't want to do more than I have to because if I'm doing more, I'm getting paid the same as the person right next to me, and I'm going to do average or below average work and get paid the same as everyone else. And to what you're saying, what I hear you saying is completely opposite of that. Like, what a negative attitude. And I think not just being a coach, but sports in general teach you how to not only be coachable, but push your ability, because what's wrong with that mentality? You can have that mentality, but I think ultimately it just comes back to yourself.
Yeah.
Like, if that's the kind of attitude that I'm going to have going about my work, what's my attitude about my family? What's my attitude about me as like, how do I value myself?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of all the things that I hear you saying. It's not just about sports,
right?
But it's about anybody, whatever kind of career that they have.
Right. It's the amount of effort that you put into what you do. You can always do the minimum.
Yeah.
You might be able to land a job, maybe not a successful one, but it's the people who are going above and beyond consistently that are going to make impact. And that's how you set them up for success. That's why I think competition is really vital for children.
There's also a key to it that you've helped me tap into that's so important, and that is the ability to recognize what I do, how it affects these other people on my team.
Right.
That it's one thing for someone to move from dependence to independence. Everybody has that choice to get there. But moving to the next level of interdependence can only happen when you're working on a team that decides that they're going to be mature. Yeah. And they recognize, okay, here's my mission. This is where we're going. And what I do affects what you do, and what affects you, and you're counting on me to show up, and I'm counting on you to show up and bring it. And so that to me, when I watch my kids be a part of things like that, through sports, but also other things that they've been involved in, that it's fully transferable if they catch it young and kind of grow into it. And I never was a fan of, and this is just a personal thing, I didn't put my kids on travel teams. There are those who do, and it's very effective. It's a great opportunity. But for me, I wanted my kids to say, this is what I want to do, and keep them involved in a variety of things so that they don't just get locked in on something and at 16 they're burnt out.
Yeah.
Now that's a risk, but it's not actually a given that it's going to happen. But the one thing I wanted them to be a part of, and each of them still have friends that they're close to that they play ball with or were a part of. My daughter is still friends with people that she swam with at Nixa, and but they learned how to make good friends through that.
Well, the camaraderie.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're both doing something so common. You're both doing a goal. I mean, we were just talking about this the other day about a group of people who work out together. It's not necessarily like your best friends or you even talk to each other that much outside of the gym, but you're all doing the common, hour workout together, and you're trying to accomplish something. And when you all do it together, at the end, there's something to be said. I mean, I can't really describe the kind of feeling or of camaraderie that you have when you're done doing that. But I'm guessing after so many years of being on a team like that, it's got to be even stronger than
the
that
people
feeling.
that I'm closest to today in camaraderie are a host of guys and a coach that played together back at Kickapoo High School in 1982. They are the people. I've had friends all over the place, but the people that I'm closest to today that I can call on, we're all in a text group, and that's been a real.
This is a side question. What was your favorite song in 1982?
I Keep Forgetting by Michael McDonald.
Well, the name. You can maybe sing a jingle, but you can forget the name. But what is it?
So I went to.
I keep forgetting the name.
So my son Jordan bought tickets, and we went to see the Doobies down at Thunder Ridge.
Oh man!
Yeah.
I mean, that was it. But it was a great event. That's a sidebar.
Yeah. So this kind of brings us to our next question, not about 1982 Doobie Brothers or Michael McDonald, but realistic expectations. And we'll go back to your adult children now, but back when they were growing up, and I know you kind of hit upon it a little bit, with the travel teams. And then, we kind of talked about working out on what they're really into, one swimming, one theater, the others kind of go there. How do you kind of start those realistic expectations with your kids?
Like as far as like career and adulthood and
everything. Like what I know you started with coaching because you have a coaching background, and we've kind of talked about that. But what are the expectations of like, okay, this might not last after high school. It might not last after college. So, what is this going to look like for whenever you do move?
Here's some things that helped us. And again, everybody's got their way. When my wife and I started dating, we took long walks together, and we would just talk. That's our whole relationship has been built on conversation. She was finishing up at Baylor University. We started dating in May of 1992, and I knew she was going back. And Baylor's loaded with a lot of rich cowboys. Okay? And I was a junior high coach and teacher, and I was like, I got to embed her in her, I've got to make sure that I'm embedded in her memory.
Exactly.
And so, but that wasn't my scheme. It was just, she was so fascinating to me, and I just said, I said, what do you want to do? She's getting this degree in speech pathology, and she says, I know, but I really, ultimately, I want to be a great mom. And a little more than a year later, we were married, and we waited for 3 years, and then we had our first. And 17 months later, number 2 came along, and then 3 years later, our third, and then our daughter came along, and we worked hard and lived within our means, and she stayed at home. But she always had something that she could work, ways to contribute. Mm-hmm. But we trusted God. I mean, my mother and father were like, act like you got some sense about you and love the Lord. And that was basically the rules. And it just, if I loved God first, then I'd act like I had sense about me. And sometimes I get that backwards. But we trusted God. And my kids came home every day to supper at the table. Mm-hmm. And when my older boys were just growing up, and I was at the end of my coaching career, and I stepped down from that in 2001 and began to work on a doctorate and moved into and it changed everything about our career. But the one thing that was so important to us was that when they came home, they had her. Now I know some folks this is not a critique on anybody else's. You just work for us. Yeah. And I've always said that our kids are stable because their mom was right there, and she was such a great listener, and she listened to all their issues and it would help them work through things. But that built their stability so that when they would get involved in things and they're like, you know what, I think I'm done with that, we would talk through it. And we loved watching them do what they did, but their lives were not hanging on that. And as they chose their degree paths at school, we supported what they wanted to do. And when my daughter was in 8th grade, she was like, I want to be a nurse. And I was like, baby, full frontal embrace of math and science. It's not like Grey's Anatomy, Yeah. And I mean, she got, bare knuckled with it and learned it. And today she's in her clinicals through Cox College and going to finish up in December. And she's magnificent at it. But that's just an example. We're so fortunate because we built a relationship around conversation. And it started with my wife and I, and we've been that way with our kids. And I always ask people when they talk about their kids and challenges that they have, and I always ask them, do they like to come home? They're like, oh, yeah. I was like, perfect. If they want to come home, that's great. Do they bring their friends with them? Yeah, okay, that's even better. Yeah. It means that this is a safe place for them. And we've been so fortunate. We really have.
Man, what a great thing, too. I mean, it's almost kind of like, hey, did we make it okay? Oh, they're wanting to come back.
Yeah.
Well, maybe because there's food.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean,
I don't know. I was a starving college student one time. Yeah. I would always go to get food.
Yeah. Well, it helped that both of us worked at Evangel. My wife was an administrative assistant, and she would just send a text, hey, I've got food. And, it's like they're scrambling to her office. And but it
bat
was
signal going out.
Yeah, oh, totally. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So kind of back to coaching and coaching your kids and everything. What about the other parents? Because we kind of talk about there's kind of a different side to this where it was just hard. It's just hard because, especially at that age when you're trying to figure out yourself and you see adult people acting like children.
Yeah.
So, how do you navigate that? I mean, I know you said that you guys communicated a lot, which I'm sure was tremendous to talk about that. But I would imagine you'd have to talk about some things where like, hey, that was not right for him to do, and I know you kind of touched on a little bit about, hey, respect your coaches, which I think was great. But how do you deal with kind of like the other parents, where not only you as being a coach, but you as being a parent?
Yeah.
If you see, because some of my friends will be like, man, you should have seen this other basketball
coach.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Like these kids were like 7 years old, and it's like they're like playing an NBA game.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard because I can't control for what other parents do. Yeah. And it's sad, but it gave my kids a chance. And honestly, I didn't really pay attention to it that much, but it would give my kids a chance to see what not to do. And thankful that they're not, because whoever they played for were friends of mine that I knew, behaved like adults,
right?
And were cared for the kids. Now they weren't soft on them, but they were. But they were, especially in their developmental level. When they got into junior high and high school, some of those coaches were my friends. I knew how they were. And one of my sons, two of my sons that played football at Nixa, one one of their coaches has been a dear friend of mine since we were in junior high. And I knew he was going to get after them. And I was so okay with that because what he was teaching them about just the pain of football, you've got to embrace that. And they loved him, but they got irritated with him. And I was like, that's all right. It didn't bother me,
Yeah. So being on both sides of that coin, being the coach, the father, you've kind of been all around it. What would you have for advice for fathers who are wanting to talk to their coach about, specific issues, maybe with their kid or what they're seeing on the field? If they have concerns, what would be some advice that you have for those fathers?
This was really something. My dad never got involved in it. He came to my games, but he was president at Evangel for 40 years, so he was usually on the road, but he always scheduled his around my home games. He would schedule his travel around that to make sure he was there. But he and my mom never got involved in talking to coaches. But I remember one of the coaches, one of my boys' coaches, did something that I thought, this is how it should be done. And he sat us all down at an orientation. He said, listen, I'm not going to talk to you. But if your son has a problem, he needs to come talk to me. And it was an opportunity and this is something that is kind of a grind for me as a college administrator. There are still parents who will contact me instead of going to their child and getting their child involved, and so they tattle on somebody else that they think is not doing it right. But my son's head coach at Nixa at the time, a gentleman by the name of Rich Rehagen, and I was so impressed with some of the things that he did. And one of them was he said, "Parents, I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to talk to you after the games. I'm not going to. I'm not going to. But if you're," and he was tell the players, if you have a challenge, then I will talk to you. But it gave, and if parents wanted to be involved in it, it could be something. But it was never something where parents without the athlete. Because what that does is that enables the child to depend upon his parents to be the ones that are going to always shield him from the hard stuff. And
then when they get in their 30s, we have to work with them.
Yeah, you're welcome. But I will tell you this. You mentioned something about people doing the minimum. One of the things I am seeing in this the cohort that's coming through is they are looking for purpose in their vocation. They are looking for. That's why organizations like this or other nonprofits, students get into this because there is a deeper purpose for what's happening here. And there are those who, I have a friend that works in Washington, and we were texting back and forth, and he's in the government and all this, and he said, did we ever care about stuff like this? I was like, dude, we were in the 80s. We only cared about ourselves, So, of course. Which, sadly that's true, but not anymore. But it's like, I look at that and I see like they're looking for a deep, something to connect with that they can just give their soul to.
Oh, that's good. So I know we've talked about a lot, and it's great to have you on here because we get to revisit, like, at your coaching days, your marriage, then your kids, and now being a grandparent, which is great. Any advice for dads, or maybe me and Scott who have some young ones at home, because we're getting ready to go through this journey for the next 3 decades that you just described to us in the last 30 minutes.
We're trying to synthesize as much as we can right now.
We're all ears.
Well, my father-in-law said something one time that I've hung on to. He said, it's just backwards. He said, when you finally got the resources, you don't have it in the tank. It would be nice if it worked backwards. I said, man, I'm telling you, you're right. But because as a young dad, I remember I would give anything to have been obviously more patient, to have just, not that I could freeze time, but just stare at my kids more. To just watch them and enjoy things. When my kids and I talk, because it's like, man, I don't know what my grade card looks like, because I always would grade myself as a C because I'm I'm easily distracted and caught up in, well, I got to do this and this, and we'd travel. I'm the dad who's trying to, we're beating the land speed record of the last time we traveled and all that. But if I could, looking back, our special moments were those when I did stop and I realized, oh man, I have very healthy kids, and they share stuff with me, and they did when they were younger. I wish I had been there more and stayed longer in their times of difficulty, and so listening longer. And I used to love to read books to them, and being at the table and letting them tell their stories. And when they would tell their stories, we were so fortunate because they could all tell stories. And it was so entertaining the way that they would. My daughter is such a fabulous storyteller because she gets so tickled when we're all laughing. We don't even know what we're laughing about, but she's laughing, so we're laughing. But each one of my children were very fortunate to choose friends wisely. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a very important thing, is that you pray for your kids' friends, that they choose wisely. And when they do that, my kids always chose people that just wanted to do great things. Yeah. And they cared about each other. And we bought a house in Nixa in 2006 with a basement in it, and it was loaded with kids till they all graduated. And we wanted our house to be a place where kids came in. It was our dream that they would just come walking in. Yeah. They would come in and go straight to the refrigerator, and it was just, but.
Now you couldn't afford that.
Yeah.
No
well, it's they come. It's so funny because when they come home, they're opening the fridge. You're like, where is it? Yeah. They come in and they're like, it's just my wife and I. We only cook for ourselves. So it's like, what did you guys do? It's like, you guys are gone.
Yeah. We don't no need for it.
It's really been. We've had I'm a very fortunate man. Yeah. And I'm really grateful because I love my kids. And they love me, and I know it, and they can call me, and they know that I'll do what I can to help them. Yeah. But oftentimes it's just like they're like, hey, they would say, hey, do you want to go see a movie? Which translation is, do you want to take us? And which I have no problem doing that because they know if I go, I'm buying the tickets, I'm buying the food, and it's just. I'm the 7 on the Enneagram, so I'm gonna, I'm all about having a good time, and I'm really grateful. I am.
Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today, Dr. Jon Spence. Of course, Scott, thank you. I think now we're going to go home and stare at our little babies until they start grabbing our nose and pulling our hair. That might last 5 seconds.
Little side note for when Josie watches this, 10 years in the future. Yesterday, we were just playing. She grabs her finger up in my nose and gives me a nosebleed. I mean, I was at a doctor appointment and they're like, why is your nose so irritated? I said,
I know.
1-year-old daughter.
That's part of being a dad, right? It's all these little moments. Yes. Thank you both so much.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate you guys being here for this Good Dads podcast.